Better all the time. Oh, look at this! Holy mackerel! Righto! He's got different colours here, that's him.
Since the state government announced its review of the Central Coast's water treatment works, Wyong and Gosford councils have been campaigning heavily to keep control of the operation. At stake, they say, are the region's pristine beaches, with residents and tourists ultimately bearing the brunt of a takeover.
The council might be in the position of having to put up signs saying don't swim here if there's been a lot of wet weather recently, and that'd just be disastrous for the Central Coast.
Mr Eaton said that while the coast's present system can easily cope with a deluge, other water treatment works such as Sydney's were less effective, allowing sewage to overflow into waterways.
And it's really a matter for the public to put pressure on the government to either stop the takeover or at least to insist that environmental issues are just as important and economic ones in the current review.
The government meets to discuss the issue again next week. A decision is expected to be made in a couple of months. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
Newcastle gave Brisbane some of its own medicine at Breakers Stadium on Friday. After losing the opening round match 6-1 at Suncorp Stadium, the Breakers bounced back to record a 2-goal victory at home. Newcastle has now claimed two favoured scalps this season, the Strikers, as well as league leaders Sydney United.
Yeah, we have, and we've had some of the lower sides on toast as well and haven't been able to finish them off. I wish we were probably as ruthless, I guess, against the lower teams as we are against the top sides, I think.
But it's another big-name team on the agenda this weekend. The Breakers travel to Perth to meet the Glory. They're currently third on the ladder with the second-best attacking record in the league.
We have to just go out and say we've got to win this week, and it's as simple as that.
The Newcastle Knights held its weekly media conference this afternoon. Hot from the efforts at Sydney's World Sevens, players joined officials for the prelude to the 13-a-side season. It starts this weekend in Tamworth, with the Knights to clash with Balmain. But if you can't make it to Scully Park, the match will be broadcast on NBN, as will Newcastle's game the following week from Coffs Harbour.
I think people, they've got past the point of being bored with cricket and they're looking forward to something different, and the 13-a-side game is about to commence.
In the face of local competition with Super League side the Hunter Mariners, the Knights are overwhelmed.
I think it generally shows the support of the community, and they'll be keen to watch the games.
Newcastle has announced an almost full-strength team to travel to Tamworth. Adam Muir is in danger of missing the game through injury, while Adam McDougall also needs to pass a fitness test. It's been only a couple of days since the sides last met, Balmain winning the trophy final of the Sevens.
Will not sit in our minds, I know that for sure, going to this week's game.
Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
The push for a new grandstand has dragged on for almost 20 years, and just weeks before the 1997 football season kicks off, Waratah Oval is still without adequate spectator and player facilities. Suffering from years of neglect, the two 50-year-old structures have been fenced off from public access for almost 12 months. Local sporting groups say something must be done.
We're hoping to convince the council to show a commitment that if the grandstand at Waratah Oval's got to be demolished, they'll rebuild it with a smaller and better grandstand.
Power was cut off to change rooms after water was found leaking into electrical wires. Fox wants council to make the room safe for players until plans for a new stand are concrete. Waratah League hope a grant from Footy Tab can fund a new grandstand, but Fox wants council to commit in case the grant is not approved.
Well, we've got to say to council, we've tried our best. What about you doing the same?
Local councillors have been invited to a public meeting on Thursday, with sporting groups pushing for a new grandstand to be built similar to this one at Athletic Park.
And it's not that way, then fine, get on with it and let us move out.
Holding back, but let me tell you, one, being over to run our business the way
they would have been shooting in that paddock, shotgun shell over there.
Concerned parents, teachers and residents turned out at a meeting last night to determine a plan of action against the proposal for a private methadone clinic in Hamilton North. An unknown Sydney firm is expected to lodge a development application in the next few days to operate the Newcastle Medical Referral Centre, a 7-day methadone clinic on Broadmeadow Road. It's believed the clinic would service 300 clients a day between the hours of 6:30am to 7:30pm. The proposed site is opposite to Hamilton North Public School, with only a laneway separating them. Parents claim their children will be exposed to drug users on their way to and from school. They say Hamilton North is essentially a residential area and fear crime rates will be increased if the clinic is allowed to open. A drop in property values is also feared. Residents formed an action group at the meeting and say they will vigorously fight the plan. Simone Cobb, NBN News. Introduced from South Africa to help stabilise the sand dunes, the Bitu bush has since grown out of control, overtaking the entire Port Stephens coastline. While isolated attempts have been made to cut back the noxious weed, they've had little effect on the infestation as a whole. But the Port Stephens Council is now confident of overcoming the problem after receiving $17,000 worth of grants.
Essentially, we have an accurate map which tells us where the Bitu bush is. We have a management plan which has identified the areas which we want to remove first, and it's identified the methods which are available to us.
The eradication strategy will use a number of methods to kill the plants, including biological agents, aerial spraying and removal.
With the good work that's going to be done over the next 12 months, that government authorities, both local and state, and community groups commit themselves to a project which is probably going to take at least 10 years to eradicate this Bitu bush.
The first strategy of its kind in the state. Mr Bonja says he expects other councils to follow suit. Simone Cobb, NBN News. The rains refused to break with tradition, a deluge this morning heralding the first day of the Maitland show. But the grey skies did little to deter the keen showgoers, who simply donned their wet weather gear. Those that didn't improvised with some trusty garbage bags.
It is a bit of a pattern we've found from history, but we're out here now, we're enjoying, and you can see it's clearing rain, absolutely clearing rain, just as the forecast has promised.
Despite the conditions, the show promises to be one of the most successful yet, with an action-packed program. Riders from around Australia and overseas will compete in both the show jumping events and tomorrow night's rodeo. On the more artistic route, hundreds of world-class photographers are showcasing their talent in the town's famous annual competition.
Well, the Maitland Photographic Salon is the oldest in Australia and the most distinguished. It's one of only 3 in the world that can offer gold medal awards to those of sufficient standard. It's a fantastic display to see.
Meanwhile, the wet weather is being ignored by wine growers in the Hunter, who feverishly resumed their harvesting today. Up to their shins in mud, pickers were doing their best to haul in the grapes before the heavens open up again. Simone Cobb, NBN News.
Tomago groundwater reserves are an important community asset, providing a vital supplement to the lower Hunter's drinking water. There's a huge reservoir of water beneath the ground, containing about the same volume as in Sydney Harbour. Despite this, it is a fragile resource which needs to be properly managed to avoid contamination.
It is vulnerable. The groundwater is overlain by sand. Sand is very porous, so that whatever happens on the surface has the potential to percolate down into the groundwater. So if you pollute on the surface, then you're ultimately going to affect the groundwater.
The Department of Land and Water Conservation has released the draft groundwater management plan, which looks at how the reserves can be protected. It looks at issues such as proper land management and the need to preserve the natural ecosystems.
We were looking at a range of something like 40 different management actions, ranging through from community education so that people can be aware of the groundwater and what they can do to improve it. We're looking at establishing groundwater quality targets.
The plan is open to public comment until the end of April. Emma Ossian, NBN News.
The Hunter Mariners left for the Cook Islands on Tuesday, oblivious to the fact they'd find it hard to return. After the trial against Perth, the team is stuck in Polynesia.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't according to plans. I was informed this morning that they'd been overlooked on their flight and apparently the plane had to land elsewhere.
The first grade team won't make it back for their next trial against Canberra in Wagga tomorrow, but the match will still go ahead.
Now looking to put our best foot forward with our reserve grade team, so they're in for a bit of a rude shock when they get to Wagga tomorrow.
The Newcastle Knights nearly ran into similar problems today, rain almost washing out tomorrow night's clash with Balmain in Tamworth. But the game will go ahead, albeit without Knights second rower Adam Muir. He's out with an ankle injury. Rain hasn't yet got the better of pumps at the Newcastle Showground. They were working overtime to get the track in condition for tomorrow night's Australian Invitational Speedway Masters. 2 times runner-up Jason Crump is one of many praying for fine weather.
This is one of the meetings I enjoy riding in, so I've come back down again to try and win.
Organisers will decide at midday tomorrow whether the event will go ahead. And the Newcastle Wildfires are one of 40 teams competing at the Sawtell Sevens this weekend. The squad trained last night in preparation for Australia's premier Club Sevens competition. Top Sydney and Brisbane teams join the Novocastrians in the battle for $15,000 in prize money. Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
Once long-term unemployed, 24 job trainees today graduated from the highly successful Working for the Hunter tourism project. After receiving 6 months of on-the-job training at various tourism and hospitality businesses, 80% of graduates have found full-time employment. The statistics have so impressed the federal government that instead of slashing its funding, the scheme is expected to be continued.
This government is about getting people into jobs, not just putting them on a training merry-go-round. And with success rates of 80% as shown in this course 9, I think that it's worth investing in.
There was double cause for celebration for one trainee who helped save the life of her employer. 17-year-old Nikki Churchill was given special recognition for her quick thinking when her boss Rhonda Crisp had a heart attack. Ms Churchill says the program, which gave her first aid training, helped turn around more lives than one.
I've become more mature. I've just taken a different outlook on life. It's not bad anymore, it's good.
Armed with syringes and vaccines, a troop of nurses was busily combating disease at Lambton High today. Part of an annual high school immunisation program, the Youth Health Network is targeting 6,000 students in years 7 and 10. Although a recent campaign has been raging against vaccinations, nurses say the benefits far outweigh the risks, with 95% of injections trouble-free.
People do seroconvert and that they do make those antibodies and that they are protected. If they do get the disease, they get it in a very, very mild form and there's no complications post the infection.
The Year 7 injections are for measles, mumps and rubella, while Year 10 is protected against diphtheria, tetanus and polio. While most students face the dreaded needles bravely, some sought a little peer support.
A few sore arms, but not anything to worry about. Cold compress quite often fixes that, but the ones that are feeling a bit sick, it's usually they haven't had breakfast.
Sue Watkins says immunisation rates are continually increasing in the Newcastle Lake Macquarie area, with more than 90% of students vaccinated last year. Simone Cobb, NBN News.
Less than a month into its official program, the Bicentenary Events Corporation is already proud of its achievements. The Australia Day celebrations, the National Maritime Festival and the Symphony in the Park concert, which attracted 16,000 onlookers, its major successes to date. But not all projects have been winners. The failure of Festival Zone at Wheeler Place clocked up to experience.
It's about trying things, about trying to change things and improve things. Festival Zone, as it was, didn't work, caused us now to have a look at the future of it, and we'll do that.
Board member Councillor Margaret Henry has called for a closer look into its operations. Her concerns include the perceived lack of local artists being used.
We want to be sure that the local artists are being given equitable treatment and being given an opportunity to develop.
There's more local artists than you can poke a stick at through this program, and it's what we want to involve them and to give them an opportunity. However, there's not a moat around Newcastle. There are other things in the world besides Newcastle artists, and we need to have a look at the bigger picture.
Mr Rispoli says he welcomes a review but believes the organisation is doing a good job.
4 yellow cards in a season earns an automatic 1-week suspension in the National Soccer League, and in the weekend clash with Perth, Breakers duo Clayton Zane and Shane Thomas both hit the limit. They're out for Friday's battle with Wollongong, while 4 other players now have 3 cards this season: Troy Halpin, Glenn Sprod, Todd McManus and Shane Price.
You have to live with that. I mean, Perth had a couple last week. The only problem that we've got now is that Jason Bennett and Robbie Ironside are still... They're not going to be ready to play a game now after a couple of weeks off, so the numbers are a wee bit thin.
Cosmina will be forced to make at least 2 changes to the team that upset Perth on Saturday. The Breakers host Wollongong on Friday night, trying to overcome a long-standing hoodoo.
No, we haven't beaten them, ever.
The Newcastle Knights have arrived in Coffs Harbour for Saturday night's pre-season fixture with Manly and spent most of this morning at the gym. The squad was pleased with the 18-14 victory over Balmain at Tamworth and expect the Manly clash to be even better this Saturday.
We've had a very good off-season, and the guys have been doing a fair amount of strength and power work and speed work. And of course these games now are just conditions for the start of the competition.
Hunter has organised another clash with Super League rivals Canberra. The Mariners reserve grade team lost 42-18 on the weekend after the first were held up after flight problems from the Cook Islands. Keen to have another trial before the start of the season, Hunter will again play Canberra this weekend in Queanbeyan.
I think the flights are in place today, but we need a bit of a hit out, and so did Canberra.
Quick connections allowed Murray to make kick-off at Wagga on the weekend, and he was wrapped with the youngsters' performance.
It just shows that we've probably got a little bit of depth there that we didn't think we might have had.
David Simmons joined the Falcons for the first time this afternoon. The 240-game veteran from the Melbourne Tigers straight into the thick of things at Broadmeadow and overwhelmed to be at his new club.
I think we have a very good team, a very good nucleus. We've got the young big guys and some very good guards, so I'm very excited about this year.
If he was happy to be in Newcastle, the squad was even happier. New coach Sean Dennis led the team. It was on his recommendation that Simmons came to Newcastle.
Just his presence when he walked in the door, I mean, he looked so fit and so big, and the boys were all impressed by the way he worked out in the weight room this morning. So, you know, already his presence is being felt. And
Simmons brings a wealth of experience to the youthful roster of Falcons. Since arriving in Australia in 1989, he's played all of his matches with the Tigers, breaking a number of records in the process. But it was time for a change, and the 33-year-old will play a crucial role in Newcastle's premiership campaign.
Yeah, I come in here and I think, you know, just to look at what we have and what we have to work with, most teams don't have half of what the Falcons have.
If Newcastle's roofs are anything to go by, the city is still a long way off from becoming a paradise of solar power. But with solar hot water technology getting cheaper and more efficient, it's increasingly looking like the shining light in power production.
15 years ago was too early, but I believe now is the right time because it's being led by government policy and the general awareness of people that the greenhouse effect is real.
A Victorian-based company, Sunbather, is trying to bring that future closer, with a plan to relocate its manufacturing plant to Newcastle. It's looking for a local partner to help produce up to 500 solar panels for 250 homes a year.
Each solar water heater actually eliminates the production of 4.5 tonnes of carbon dioxide per annum. That's around about 140,000 odd tonnes in a train full of coal, I think 7 kilometres long.
The encouraging thing for us is that it's starting to see commercial returns for the work that we've been doing over a few years now in looking at alternative energy sources.
Despite Newcastle's industry, Sunbather was attracted to the city by its new image of clean and green. This will be enhanced in June when the city hosts the Pathways to Sustainability Conference, which will attract delegates from around the world. A proposal will also go to Council next month for Australia's largest wind-powered electricity generator to be built on Kooragang Island. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. It's a prize piece of real estate that's brought out the prize fighter in the developers. In one corner you have John Blackburn and Peter Daly, who represent the backers of the Honeysuckle proposal for a 4-storey hotel on the wharf. Across the road, there's private developer Richard Owens with architect Bill Morrison, who are pushing for an 8-storey intercontinental hotel.
I must admit we do have some doubts about the bona fides of it and wonder whether it isn't perhaps just a blocking move to stop our project proceeding or to preserve views to the other side for a longer period of time.
Well, that's absolutely scurrilous. I mean, why would they say that when we have a firm proposal from the Intercontinental Hotel? I'm not going to stoop to that level.
It's just the latest in an ongoing battle between the two groups over the Wharf Road site. The combatants fearing dual developments and delays.
We want to take advantage of the Olympic Games period, and in order to really take advantage of that, we need to be up there and running very soon.
The Intercontinental Group have told me that if four of the levels are obstructed by another building on the other side, they would find it extremely difficult to make it economically viable.
The Honeysuckle Group wants its entire strip on the foreshore to be rezoned for commercial development. Richard Owens says that could destroy the harbour. A council committee will consider the rezoning application tonight. Its recommendations to go to a full meeting of Newcastle Council next Tuesday. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
The study into the future of the medical workforce has revealed some startling results. Almost half of all medical graduates are now women, and analysts predict that by the year 2000, they'll make up around 30% of the medical workforce. The findings could mean some radical changes.
It has implications for different forms of training, and it also has implications for the long-term way in which health services may be delivered.
Research shows that women doctors operate differently from their male counterparts. So with more women medical practitioners in the workforce, there could be a change in the type of service patients receive.
The way women practice in general practice is somewhat different from the way men. They tend to take a little longer seeing patients, and they address a wider range of problems.
Women's participation in the medical workforce drops dramatically between the ages of 30 and 45, which prevents many women becoming specialists. And despite more women taking up training in this area, the proportion of women who specialise is still far less than the number of males.
It's difficult for them to fit in the demanding hours of medical training, and particularly in the specialties, with their family needs.
The federal government will use the results to help modify training in universities and hospitals to provide more flexibility. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
The availability of drugs on the North Coast is nothing new, but it seems something far more powerful and dangerous has hit the streets. At 11 yesterday morning, two 22-year-old women had to be stabilised by ambulance officers at Nambucca Heads railway station. At the same time, a 29-year-old man was found unconscious at the RSL car park. Just after midday at Coffs Harbour Airport, a plane was forced to turn around and land when a passenger became sick. He was later charged with self-administration of heroin.
They're not expecting it to be so strong, and then they're going to overdose, they're going to stop breathing far more quickly, and that's the consequences they're going to find themselves in.
For police, the overdoses and the symptoms shown by all four people are more than coincidental.
Yes, we do. We think it's been brought up here from Sydney
from a batch of high-grade heroin which they had in Sydney there last week.
The drug had been dealt in the crime-plagued areas of Cabramatta and King's Cross. Estimated to be 20% pure, 3 times stronger than usual, it's considered highly lethal. The overdoses are just the tip of the iceberg in a hard drug problem. To date, 47 people are on a waiting list for the only local methadone program.
So a lot of the folks from the Sydney area are moving to Coffs Harbour for a better lifestyle, and they're trying to bring their treatment with them.
Katrina Hines, NBN News. Katrina Hines, NBN News, late edition.
Andrew Johns was instrumental in the Knights' early charge at Manly. He set up Matthew Gidley for Newcastle's opening points, then added the extras for a 6-0 lead, but just as it was looking good, the star halfback landed badly on his ankle early in the second half.
I haven't actually done a lot. I was a bit of fear I might have dislocated or broke. I was in that much pain.
Johns spent the day in physiotherapy after x-rays.
It doesn't look to be any cracks or breaks there, so that's a positive there, but they say 4 to 6 weeks, but I'm going to put a lot of work into it. Hopefully, maybe 3 weeks I'll look to come back.
The injury means Johns will definitely miss the Knights' last pre-season fixture against the Roosters and the opening Optus Cup clash with the Dragons.
Yeah, it's disappointing with so much work being put in, via training and weights work, but they happen. These things happen in football, so I'll just have to keep the chin up and keep working hard. And if anything, it'll probably make me hungrier.
Good news for the Newcastle Knights. The stretcher has been taken out, but they're going to...